I've got an awesome gimbal from FilmPower that has 5 axes. That's right, 5, not 3. So we're gonna check out this gimbal and see if it's worth getting. So you might be asking, 5 axes, where's the extra 4th and 5th axis on this gimbal? Basically what it is it's a 2-handed gimbal, and it's got springs that go from the handles to where the actual gimbal is resting. So essentially what this is doing is it's adding an extra level of stabilization onto the gimbal. So all your up and down motion is supposed to be taken off by these springs, because when you're walking, there's obviously a rhythm to your motion that's up and down. And you see this all the time when people use gimbals improperly, the footage will do this. But with the 5-axis gimbal, what it does is it takes out this up and down bumping motion. So the gimbal that I have is the Nebula 4500. It's a little bit pricier than, say, a single-handed gimbal, but you do have this added level of stabilization, which is interesting. You have this freedom to move around at a faster pace, do some more things like running, and you don't have to be so worried of having the up and down bump and shake. Before we get into the test footage, I have a couple things I want to bring up. First, yes, this gimbal was sent to me for free to test out. I am not paid to do this review, so these are all my thoughts from using this gimbal myself. Nothing in here is a paid review. Also, at the end of this video, I'm gonna give you my full opinion if I personally would use this gimbal and who this gimbal is used for. All right, before we get into some thoughts and talking about this gimbal, let's look at just the footage that I've got shooting with it. Before we get into some specifics about this gimbal, I want to mention that if you like the music that you heard on that little sequence, I get all of my music from Artlist.io, and I highly suggest if you're looking for music for your YouTube channel or you're looking for music for any of your film productions, Artlist allows you to use all their music for just one price, and that's it. Guys, there's a link down below in the description. You get 2 months free if you sign up using my link, so I highly suggest checking that out if you're interested in finding a source of unlimited music for your content. First things first though, let's talk about the features of this gimbal. So it's got a dual handle, but it's also got a single-handed grip that comes with it. Now on the gimbal itself, it has one button, and this button allows you to change the mode. So if you press once, it snaps the camera back to the midpoint. If you click it twice, it's in follow mode. If you click it 3 times, it's in lock mode. If you click it 4 times, it's in roll follow mode, which is pretty cool and kind of unique. And if you click it 5 times, it has a time-lapse feature. Another cool thing is that it's got the slant gimbal look to it, so you can see the screen easily. The whole gimbal itself is created in a slant. And then also with the configuration, you can have the gimbal above the handles or below on both the single or the dual grip setting. So you have some options with the way you want to hold it. There is an app, and then you also have a piece of software on the computer that controls more of the gimbal itself. The gimbal came with 2 batteries, and each of these batteries last around 8 hours. So definitely when you have both these batteries, you'll be able to go all day, no problem. One of the cool things about this gimbal is that it's simple and it's pretty easy to use. So there's not a lot of frills on it. You have basically the one button that allows you to change the mode, And other than that, you don't have any other buttons on the gimbal. So because of that, it makes it super simple, super easy to use. You have 2 follow modes or you have lock mode, and you know that beyond that, you're not having to deal with a bunch of settings and a bunch of things on the gimbal itself to get the footage that you want. If you're used to using other gimbals, a lot of times you'll have things like a thumb controller that allows you to push the direction. And that's one thing that I wish this gimbal had. I wish that it had a thumb controller on the handles, on the dual grip handles, and also on the single handle, so that I can move the camera without having to take my hands off the dual grip. You can physically grab the camera and move it and put it in the position, but when you're on a dual grip scenario, you don't want to take your hands off the dual grips. So that's one thing that I wish that this gimbal had. It's not the biggest deal in the world, and especially when you start using this gimbal, you understand that you don't really need the thumb controller. It is a luxury to have on these kind of gimbals. For the size, it's awesome. You would think that because it's got more hardware involved, it would be heavier. It's actually a very light gimbal. And when you pack it down into your bag, it will fit in the same space that a single-handed gimbal will fit in. So when I'm putting it in my backpack, it was pretty easy to throw in and not have to bring like an additional case for the gimbal. So that's one thing, it packs down small, it lays flat. The batteries themselves are super light, so you don't have a ton of extra weight with you when you're carrying multiple batteries. In terms of balancing, it's super easy. It didn't take a lot of time for me to balance it, and when I was out shooting with it, I was switching between different lenses, rebalancing in the field, and one of the best things about this gimbal is that you could just set it down with the dual handle grip and balance it and not have to have an additional tripod. When you have a single-handed grip gimbal, a lot of times you have to throw on a tripod, screw it on to be able to balance it just because you need it to sit flat, but you don't want it to tip over. With this one, it's easy. And that's one thing I really like about this gimbal is you can just set it down on the dual grip and you're able to balance it right then and there. So in the field, you can balance, put a new lens on, rebalance it real quick and keep moving without a lot of time and a lot of extra gear. So when you want to switch between the dual handle grip and the single handle grip, there's just a quick thumb adjustment. You pop it off, you pop it on. One of the cool things about this gimbal is that the gimbal itself is a pretty self-contained unit, and there are actually additional accessories that you can buy and put the gimbal on. So for example, if you want to add a jib to your setup, you can stick this gimbal on the end of a jib, and you can also get a controller box that allows you to use a jib setup. Now that's really cool, something I haven't tested out yet, and I actually am very interested in myself because having a gimbal that's easy to pop off and turn into a jib gives you some really cool options for getting awesome footage. Now one thing I'm bummed about is that with the single-handed grip, there is no screw on the bottom, and that's one thing. If you're out traveling and you have a monopod with you, you can get jib-like shots with a gimbal by just screwing a monopod onto the bottom and doing some really cool big sweeping motions. So let's talk about the good and let's talk about the bad. The good is that yes, it does keep your footage stable, and when you're doing things like running or walking, it gives you this added level of stabilization that you don't have with 3-axis gimbals. You can actually be a little bit free in your movements and not have to worry so much about your up and down because it is taking the load off of the up and down motions. All right, so basically I'm going to show you the difference between the 5th axis and no 5th axis. So I'm just holding the gimbal, not using it. And this is just walking with a gimbal. So you can see how when you're walking, you have that up and down bouncing motion. Now when you put it on the 5th axis, it's actually taking some of the load off of that up and down bouncing motion. Now it's not gonna be perfect if you're walking and bouncing the camera, you're still gonna bounce. But when you walk, it does take out a little bit of the bounce, so you don't have to worry so much about the up and down motion. Also, this gimbal would be good to do hyperlapses because it does take a lot of the, like I said, the up and down bumps out of it. The thing that makes this gimbal good is that it's simple, so there's not a lot of frills on it, and I like things that are simple and easy to use. Now let's talk about the bad. Now, I wish there was a thumb controller, like I said. There's no way to move the camera unless you buy an additional accessory which mounts on top of the controller. I just wish it was built in. To get extra functionality is you have to buy extra accessories. It does make it more expensive. If you're using it in multiple formats, like say you get the jib feature for this, then you want that box to be down at the other end of the jib, so it makes sense that it's detachable. So it all depends on what it is that you're using this gimbal for and the different ways in which you're using it. Another thing that I don't like about this gimbal is the time-lapse mode. It's just not super user-friendly. I'm never gonna end up using it just because the time it takes to set up and use it. It's just not a strength of this gimbal. So who is this gimbal for? Well, there's definitely some people that I think will benefit from having this gimbal. If you're an event shooter, if you're someone that's run and gun, and you don't have a lot of time to reset your shots or do things over, then this gimbal will help because once you get it down and use this 5th axis, you're actually gonna get smoother footage in the long run. So for people that do things like weddings, this could be a good gimbal because you get one chance to get the shot. The gimbal's simple, easy to use. You turn on and go. The modes are right there on the gimbal itself. You're never dealing with an app when you're out in the field, and you could just get the shots that you need. You won't need to redo your shot because the 5th axis will help stabilize the footage. The other person that this is for is someone who wants these extra features like the jib, single handle, dual handle, like you want to have the ability to do different things with this gimbal, then this gimbal is a great choice for you because you have these optional accessories. My personal takeaway is that I like this gimbal, but I wouldn't necessarily use it all the time. Like I was saying, it's a dual handle grip. Basically, if you want that 5th axis, you're gonna have to use the dual handle, and the dual handle is not always ideal. I personally like using a 3-axis gimbal and a single handheld gimbal for a lot of the times when I'm out in the field and traveling, because it's easy to use when you have a smaller gimbal that's only in one hand. There's a lot of times where I might be using my other hand to do something else. I use the second hand to stabilize it, and the 5th axis is giving me some awesome footage, but it's not something that I personally would use all the time. Now, if I'm doing like an event, like I was saying, if I want to do something that's more active, like running, or there's gonna be a situation where I'm doing longer takes, then I will consider using this gimbal because that 5th axis will give me the freedom to be a little bit more fluid in my motion and not have to worry so much about keeping the gimbal walk. All right, guys, that is it. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this gimbal down below in the description. It's definitely one to consider if you need that 5th axis of stabilization, but definitely if you don't need that, 3-axis gimbals work great as well. The 5th axis isn't something that you absolutely need. As you could see, there are some situations where it may help and it may give you some more flexibility. All right, guys, if you're new to this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. There's a lot of awesome filmmaking tutorials. I've got a bunch of camera reviews. Also, I've got some cool short films from when me and my wife travel around the world. One of the things that I've been working on is a creator film school that teaches you how to have a career in filmmaking, whether it's starting your own production company, freelancing, doing the whole YouTube, social media thing. Guys, I put all the information, everything that I've learned to get to where I am today. So if you're interested in having a career as a creator, I would highly check it out. The link's down below in the description. And guys, I will see you on the next one.